right now in practice, I'm seeing patients about 15, 16 hours a week total, spread over 3 days. The month before I started with you guys, it was around like just barely hit 10,000. But
Mhm.
now we've been hitting like up to 15, 16 and continuing to grow. So I've been an owner for my clinic here for 8 years. And yeah, like, when I first started, I didn't have a lot of guidance. I was really like kind of thrown into a shared space agreement and big learning curve. But I also acknowledge that things that I learned along the way, um, you can't stop learning new things, and things that worked
Yeah.
10 years ago aren't necessarily going to be useful
Mm.
now as things
Yeah.
change, as the market changes.
Yeah.
So my approach to practice and like, getting started with you guys with Chiro Jump is like a willingness to grow, learn new
Mm.
things. And that's kind of the
Yeah.
approach I take with everything.
Yeah. What were some of the struggles that you had that like even got you on the phone interested about like, hey, what do you guys even do? Like, what were some of the things that you were walking through in practice at the time?
I think the main thing, like the big eye opener, was that like previous years, like even if I was using the same systems, like the amount of new
Hmm.
patients I was getting was actually a decent amount to keep things
Mm.
pretty consistent. But
Right.
when
Right.
things shifted and changed within the previous 6 months to a year before I started with you guys, like it was like, okay, there's not as much in the pipeline. So even if I improved my processes, there's not as much opportunity to scale those
Yeah.
improvements. So that was the biggest pain point where I was like, I don't want to do some of these other methods of getting new patients. I just don't have the capacity or the time to
Mm.
do that. So like starting with you guys, the main thing was to put something on autopilot where we have a system in place where we're just seeing those people on the
Yeah.
schedule. And then any improvements that are made from my internal systems can be directly applied, and actually we can see the results sooner versus
Yeah. Yeah.
wondering what works.
That's awesome. That's amazing. What were like the new patient numbers like beforehand?
Like there's 1 month, like this wasn't the average, but there's 1 month in February of early this year where I had two new patients the whole month. And I was like, okay, this is not sustainable. Like it was
Wow.
higher now in
Yeah.
January and March, but like I had follow-up patients, or like kind of the maintenance people that were still keeping my practice somewhat
Mm.
reasonable. But I was like, if this continues to happen, I can't just wait for
Right.
it'll
Right.
change, like without doing anything different. Like I couldn't expect it to just change.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was kind of the thing. How were you feeling as you started to realize like, wait, like I probably need to shift something up in order for change to happen?
Well, I think I was getting discouraged because I was like, people tend to see, like, say, "Oh, I've been in practice for this long. It shouldn't be this way at this point in my career."
Right. Right.
So maybe if I had that in the first couple of years, like, there might have been months like
Mm.
that, but that obviously would have been challenging. But it would have been like, oh,
Right.
like this is just due to like inexperience. Now it's like,
Yeah. It's like you're
what's
expecting it.
yeah, also because I had a student on board and I was responsible for like teaching her the way things were going to be in practice and
Mm.
improving. So,
Right.
not having as much of the opportunity to actually, oh, like we don't have new patients this week.
Yeah.
How's that a good learning environment for her too?
Mm. It's kind of like balancing the family responsibilities. The responsibilities as like an educator to raise her up as a new Cairo. The responsibilities is like, hey, I need to have something that's growing, not receding. What was the impact of like all these the inconsistency in numbers on your family and kind of at home? What were things like there?
It was definitely impacting things like, my partner, she's never like expecting me to be like she has a decent job too, like, but
Mm.
in terms of like me, since my income wasn't as consistent as like someone with a steady paycheck, like I
Yeah.
put a lot of value in like being able to,
Right.
actually, the trade-off for being a business owner and having these additional stressors that employees don't need to worry about is the potential for more
Right.
income or scalability. So the fact that that wasn't happening at that time kind of made me
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of feel my worth as or like as a
Mm.
business owner a little bit. It was diminished a bit, I guess. So yeah, it was tough for a little bit there.
Yeah. No, that's super real. So you felt like you weren't being the provider that you were able to be. And so you were kind of giving up the freedom and still not even reaping the rewards of that trade-off.
Yeah, I think I originally got an email just reaching out about one of your free kind of added bonus programs. So it's the referral, or it's the what was it, the review. So
Hmm.
that was also something that it was relevant to what I had in mind too. Is like how do we get more reviews? I think like we only had a few reviews over the last
Yeah.
7 months, and I was like, okay, like this, I obviously knew that that would be helpful, and I take a look at the other businesses around me, and they probably have more. So that was also something. If you like we're offering a solution to that problem, like I'm of course interested to hear, especially if it was like, foot in the door kind of offer, even if I don't end up doing. I didn't even know what you guys were all about at that time. I just like
Yeah.
I didn't know what the service was in terms of
Yeah.
signing up for your program. I just knew that if this is going to benefit my review numbers, then I'll just take a look. Well, I think like the first meeting with you, like where we were just talking about the review program, but then you asked a few key questions like on the other areas of practice too.
Mm.
So I felt like you were really understanding like where my practice was at and trying to find a way
Yeah.
like to see if there was an opportunity based on what you know about your service for me. And at that point, I had no idea what you actually did on top of the review. So, but I mean, I appreciated that there was that bit of a
Yeah.
process. I mean, I kind of see it like, I see that you're applying similar framework to what you're teaching us to do with patients too. It's just, obviously a different context.
Yeah.
But I kind of think back to that. I'm like, well, like I felt like you were really connecting with me and my business. So if that works for me, right? I don't like,
Yeah.
I get a lot of marketing emails. I get a lot of like cold call kind of emails
Yeah.
pitching similar things, but
Yeah.
they're all talking about, they don't talk about what they do and say, if you're interested, then do this. But this was a different approach, right? It was like you were actually understanding of where I was at in practice.
Yeah.
And then, so if I can apply the same concepts to people that I'm selling, I guess, like they would feel the same way that I felt.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Let's go. I love that. I love that. What were some of the doubts and the fears that you had about saying yes? Like, okay, let's try it. Like, let's run with this. Let's try out the first 16 weeks.
Well, the uncertainty of like not seeing, like you don't know how the results are going to take place until you do it. So you got to take a bit of a risk there and like kind of trust, I guess, that this person knows what they're doing. But yeah, of course, like, you don't want to invest in something that's going to like become an expense, right? That's any business owner. We're not like, there's plenty of opportunity to do that, right? Like, you can just give your money everywhere.
Finding expenses is really easy.
I think like when you asked like, is this in the right time? And it actually was like perfect time. Like I was already contemplating, I was already trying to run my own ads that were like not really that necessarily successful, but it was just wouldn't know what to do to make it better. Right. So I was already thinking about all these things that I wanted to do. Just I didn't have a game plan to really do it.
Yeah. Okay. So it just felt like it is the right time, like you're exploring things. And then walk me through like where are you at now? What's like the story been since we started working together now? And I know things are going to continuously just be growing and growing and growing, but like where are we at currently?
Right now, like pretty much like where there's a 2 week wait for new patients, which isn't like great for someone that needs something sooner, but at the same time, like aside from maybe a couple weeks after like my vacation where we actually asked to pause ads, but it took a couple weeks to get things going again. But since then, like the pipeline's been full, like I don't have to stress out about those external factors. I've been able to work on what I'm doing in the office and just continually improve. And the more people we end up seeing, like in that initial process and applying the sales training, like there's going to be just further and further improvements. So right now, like my priority is actually to add another practitioner to plug into the same system. So that's going to be the focus in the next few weeks for sure. Yeah, I think the month before I started with you guys, it was around like, just barely hit 10,000, like for a few of those months. I think the average over a 12-month period was probably 10 or 11. But now we've been hitting like up to 15, 16 and continuing to grow. So there's still like capacity for more. And if I add a new practitioner, that can scale up even more. But it's definitely been a big improvement and it's taken a lot of like pressure off, I guess, like on their aspects of my life.
Yeah. And I think one thing I'd love if you can share a little bit more about like your work-life balance and kind of the amount of time that you actually are spending in practice. Because you're not there 60 hours a week, right? Like you're like minimal practice. Every single second in practice is like productivity. So can you walk through that a little bit?
Yeah, so I have a 5-year-old son and I do drop-offs for his kindergarten 4 days a week. I'm doing a lot of the meal preparation, a lot of the stuff that I don't want to do on the weekends when he's home. I try to take care of during the day. I'm also a marathon runner. I do a lot of training. So I fit that in. Like right now, I'm not training quite as much, but typically I'd be running like at least 6-7 hours a week. So that takes up a lot of like, that's a priority for me as part of my identity is I attract a lot of runners in my practice that way too. but it also is something that, keeps my mind clear, keeps my stress low, and gives me, direction in my alone
Yeah.
time, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm busy with a lot of those other things. I don't want to spend
Yeah.
the weekends like doing grocery shopping. I don't want to spend the weekends running errands if I don't have to. So I try to do that during the week. So right now in practice, I'm seeing patients about 15, 16 hours a week total, spread over 3 days. So it doesn't
Hmm.
seem like much, but there's still a lot of availability. Like there's still the
Hmm.
times that are available for people. And then I have another doctor that's here part time 2 days a week. And then so if we add another practitioner, there's a capacity to do that and a capacity to
Hmm.
scale, just given scheduling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels good to have like someone on your in your corner, I guess, like not actively there, but like working on things that can be improved and
Hmm.
provide feedback and just like working as a partner versus when I was first starting practice, like it was really like just me and I had no experience and really nothing to work
Yeah.
with. So yeah, it was little bit isolated in that
Hmm.
situation. So
Yeah.
it definitely feels good to have someone in your corner that knows things about certain things that you don't know and you don't necessarily want to take the time to be an expert in.
Hmm. How is this growth and the shift in perspective and even just time that you're able to not be worrying about the business and instead be with the family? Like, how's that impacted your family? How's that impacted you personally? Can you walk me through that?
With the 5-year-old, like it's very important right now to be present, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of emotions. Like he started kindergarten a couple of months ago, and I know that if my mind is somewhere else and he needs
Mm.
my attention, that's when some of these emotions may come up. So I want to frame like be a good like kind of model like proper
Mm.
behavior, like be present with him.
Hmm.
So not having to really stress out too much outside of my designated business hours. Like when he's home,
Yeah.
like when we're on
Yeah.
vacation, I don't need to. I can be more
Yeah.
present for pretty much
Totally.
everything.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that was unexpected when I first started was the sales training aspect
Mm.
because like I've seen a lot of different talks and seminars, things like that are maybe helpful for that aspect, but this was completely different. Like in how you mentioned in the first couple of meetings we had, got to be willing to get out of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
and I'm always willing to do that. But like seeing through this process and actually going back and seeing how things have improved. Like there were a couple of instances where someone had an initial appointment when we first started
Hmm.
with Chiropractor, and for whatever reason they had to postpone and cancel, or like they went on vacation and they came back. So their second appointment was like 5 or 6 weeks later. But
Mm.
I look back to my notes and my approach on the first visit over that 6 weeks. It was completely different from the people that had that like the same, the report on the same day, but
Yeah.
their appointment was the week before. So over that 4 or 5 week period, my approach to the initial appointments was way different. I was able to connect with them a lot better. And
Yeah.
like, so I looked at that. I looked at that one that had the big gap. I'm like, what's it doing? Like, I didn't get any information. Like, this is what I've been doing, for years now with everyone
Yeah.
else. So yeah, like I can see how, if my retention numbers were the way they were, like that's a pretty clear indication of why.
Yeah. And like to be super specific, it was like patients weren't fully bought into like their treatment and their plan, right?
I wasn't really connecting with their goals. Like, so it's like, okay, why, if I don't even know what their true goals are with like a deeper, like emotional connection to them, they're not
Yeah.
gonna they're gonna say something, but they might say they're bought in, but they're not.
Right. And then you notice that on the back end of like looking back at all the data and like retention after your treatment plans. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. I think that was the biggest one.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Really the last thing that I have for you is like, what would you tell somebody who's watching this right now and it's like, hey, do I take the next step? Do I, what do I do? Like, what could you share with them who's kind of unsure?
I would say like if you're the person that's willing to change, willing to make changes that are uncomfortable, and if it's something where do you feel that your practice the way it is now is sustainable and you'd be happy with it? If the answer is no, then it's worth at least taking a closer look or doing something different. Because
Yeah.
yeah, things aren't just gonna change by doing the same things over and over.
Mm, it's so good. So good. Yes. So if you're watching this and you're like curious about that, like, hey, maybe something does need to change because I've been hovering around the same spot for a while. Maybe my skills, I'm just not okay with the connection I have and the skills that I have here. And you're looking to grow, not just in your practice growth, but also in your personal growth and also in your ability to have conversations and get patients excited about care and so forth. If you're that kind of person, just book a time. Worst comes to worst, we'll give you one of our free campaigns for you and then send you on your way and say we can't help you. But best case scenario, we can work with you, help you actually accomplish, that growth in your skill set, in your practice, in your life, so that you can have the financial, the time, the impact that you're looking for. So book a call and we'll go from there.